Good evening, everyone. Hello. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes,
Good evening.
Nilakshi. Yes, good evening. This is Philip.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Good evening to every one of you. And we are in educational technology module. And last time we discussed up to scientific method, if I remember right. Am I right? The steps of the scientific method and some classroom examples. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And today we are going to look at another two methods, right? And your assignment, written assignment, is going to be based on one of these. So it's very important for you to know it very well. And you may know these methods, but the scientific aspect of it. And in order to do your assignment based on these two methods, a very practical oriented assignment, okay? So we will be having the discussion today. And by next week that you will be receiving the instructions for your assignment, the written assignment, okay? And I'm going to discuss flipped method. Flipped method, FLIPPED, and the jigsaw method as two methods in student-centered classroom. What are the two methods I'm going to discuss?
Flip method.
The flipped method and the jigsaw method. They are highly student-centered. They actually get you to develop your students' 21st century skills. What are the 21st century skills? The 4Cs. What are the 21st century 4Cs to be developed through education? The 4Cs of the 21st century to be developed through education. So as teachers, you should know each and every lesson should gear towards it. Communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. I repeat, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So those are the 4Cs of the 21st century skills. And education should gear towards the development of them, right? Whatever the subject that you teach, it doesn't matter. Whatever the topic you teach, that it doesn't matter. The typical, the traditional teacher-centered methods will not get them to develop those 4Cs of the 21st century. Okay? So these two methods that I'm discussing today, the flipped method and the jigsaw method, they are highly student-centered. They definitely contribute to the development of these 4Cs of the 21st century. With that introduction, let me open my PowerPoint. Until I open my PowerPoint, you can talk to me if you have any concerns and all that. Do you have any concerns, anything to discuss with me and all that? No?
For me, no, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Others? Hello? Do you have anything to discuss with me? No, that is okay then. Okay, right. Let me open my first one, the PowerPoint slides, the flipped method. Okay, right. I'm sharing it with you. Right. So this is, as I told you, a highly student-centered method. Okay, and you can see what happens here. Flipped method means the traditional classroom is flipped. I see. Can you still see the PowerPoint? No, no. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Can, madam.
So flipping means what? You have flipped the traditional classroom. I don't know, heavy rains here in Kalutara. What about you all?
In north, there is no rain, ma'am.
Actually speaking, right. Here in Kalutara, heavy rains with lots of winds. If there are connection issues, please bear with me. We'll try to manage our best, okay? And then flipped method. Uh, it is actually a method that flipping or that flips the traditional classroom, okay? You're going to turn the traditional classroom upside down, topsy-turvy in the flipped method. So that is one brief introduction that I can give you about this method. And this is highly effective in the development of the 4 C's of the 21st century in the child. It's not just a matter of giving the subject matter anymore. Subject matter, if they want to know, it's a matter of a click, right? They don't have to depend on the teacher anymore. But the development of these skills, of course, should be done along with the imparting of subject matter. That should be the new thinking in the teachers. The traditional ways will not actually be effective, right? So you might think, we are actually going very traditional and lectures and all that. You all are adult learners. Adult learning is andragogy, right? But when you actually teach the young learners in school, it is pedagogy, that is teaching the children. So teaching the children we are discussing here. When it comes to andragogy, it doesn't mean that we can't flip the classroom, we can use it and all that. Actually, I have done this flipping when I do physical classrooms with my adult learners. But it is not a must. We can actually make use of all the advantages of lecture method in an adult class, because covering a vast area and all that, we can do that. So because of that, it's no problem. But we are talking about pedagogy, the children, okay? Teaching children, not teaching adults. So developing those 4 skills is a must along with the subject matter. Then the traditional lecturing and all that will not help. Teacher in front of class talk and chalk will not work. So you have to use this, not though everyday basis, because we lack facilities and resources. We can actually then and there, at least once a week, when there is possibility that you can actually use different methods of student-centered classroom, right? So let's see what this flipped method is as an introduction, sharing the second slide with you. The flipped classroom model is a model of blended learning. What is meant by blended learning? What is the feature of blended learning? Hmm? Physical classes are blended with ICT. The use of ICT in the typical classroom. That is blended learning. Now, in the flipped classroom also, you are expected to use ICT. You are expected to use ICT. Students learn by watching video lectures, educational materials at home, right? They are actually given access to LMS. Students actually take questionnaires and Google Forms using internet. All these are combined into this classroom, into the flipped classroom. Okay. So that is a feature of this flipped classroom. It's a form of blended learning. That means that you actually combine, you make use of ICT in the flipped classroom. Is it clear to you? So how we are going to use them, we are going to discuss it further. Is it clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Then we come to the second point. The flipped classroom is an educational technique that consists of two parts. That is, Bishop and Verliger talks about another feature of the flipped class. The first point is, in the flipped class, there is the use of ICT. Okay. The second point is, you have to actually discuss the flipped classroom consisting of two parts. The two parts are, right, in class activities and out of class activities. You can't talk about flipped classroom method without talking about the two types of activities done in class activities and out of class activities. So you can jot it down. These are the two parts of a flipped classroom: in class activities, out of class activities. Right. The third one. So as you actually look at this, third point is the traditional class is turned upside down, sent topsy-turvy in the flipped classroom. So I have given you 3 points. The traditional classroom is sent upside down. It's a totally different from the traditional class, and we are going to see how. And then the use of ICT and the flipped classroom having two parts: in class activities and out of class activities. So let's see how we can organize this. Now, what happened in the traditional classroom, we have to first discuss, because we are going to turn this traditional classroom upside down. So it's good to know what happens in a traditional classroom then. We will recall it. Now, what happened? We can actually divide our teaching, divide our activities, divide our teaching into hot and lot and hot, as I have seen given here. What is it? Lot and hot. What does it mean by lot and hot? Are you listening, dear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. What is meant by this lot and hot? Lot stands for lower order thinking activities. Lot stands for lower order thinking activities. Hot stands for higher order thinking activities. If you have done Bloom's taxonomy, you know this. But I'm not going to talk about Bloom's taxonomy exactly, right? We first start with lower order thinking activities, and then only that we move on to the higher order thinking activities. Now, suppose now you're teaching them a poem. You just get them to by heart the poem. You just get them to know the meaning of the poem. That is lower order thinking abilities. But higher order thinking, you get them to analyze the poem for the poetic devices. You get them to compare and contrast. You get them to uh, identify the meaning of the message conveyed. They are higher order thinking. Now, for example, when you teach a poem to a small child, the child doesn't even know the meaning, just rote learn. And like parroting, he actually resides. Lower order, just remembering and understanding. And then what's the name of the bird here? Where is it? What color is it? That is meaning, comprehension. They are all lower order thinking. But higher order thinking, when they grow up, when they are in grade 6, 7, secondary, and all that, we get them to identify comparisons, similes, metaphors, personifications, rhyming words, message conveyed, and all that, and get them to actually uh, understand the poem in the context of real world, and all these things happen. That is higher order thinking. So normally in a typical classroom, how does it happen? The traditional class. Here, the teacher gets the students to open the textbook. Teacher explains everything in the book using the blackboard and all that. Students listen and understand. And then teacher give them some homework to do based on what they learn. So applying what they learn is higher order. And that is set as homework to be done individually on their own. Do you agree with these traditional classroom patterns that I'm talking to you about? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Teacher, actually, it's there in the textbook, even with the grade 11 students. It's about kings of Sri Lanka. It's the reading passages there in the textbook, in the history lesson. But teacher walks in front of the class, explain everything in the textbook to the students in the class, and ask a few questions to check their understanding. And you give them some activity to be done at home using what they learned. It is actually higher order, maybe comparing and contrasting the two kings, their work, and all that. They're doing it after out of class, going home individually. This is the traditional class. It is actually a shame now when we recall how it's done by us in the traditional class. Why? Your students, they can read and understand what is there in the textbook. You don't have to actually get them to, you don't have to explain it. And ultimately, when you give them difficult tasks, they have to do it out of class and on their own individually. No pair work, no group work, no cooperative learning to facilitate it. Very foolish of us in the traditional way. But in the fifth class, it is actually sent upside down. This is how it's done. Now, the lower order ones, right? Just read and understand, watch a YouTube video and understand that the students can do it on their own. So, before coming to class, right? Before coming to class, what happens first is out of class activity. In the traditional class, lower order activities in class takes place first, and higher order activities out of class happens afterwards. But in the flipped class, lower order thinking activities, read and understand, listen and understand, they are done first as out of class because students can manage it on their own. They are just lower order thinking activities. They are not empty vessels in student centered education. So you get them to be autonomous learners. They can read, they can watch a YouTube video, they can listen, they can understand. Lower order thinking, read and understand, listen and understand, see and understand. They are done first as out of class activities. And then the students come to class to do in class activities, and the in class activities are higher order thinking activities where you get them to work in groups for collaboration, where you get them to do presentations, do debates, do discussions to develop their critical thinking and creativity and develop their communication skills, the four skills of the 21st century. In the traditional classroom, higher order thinking activities are done individually. and they don't have to present anything. They don't have to think critically because they are individually working. But here now, the basic subject matter, listen and learn, read and learn, watch and learn, they do it on their own. You're facilitating it before coming to class, lower order as out of class, with the use of ICT, with the use of ICT. So then they are actually autonomous learners. You're making them autonomous learners and they can do it actually. You don't have to actually go on explaining what is there in the book, what is there they can see in the video. And then they come to class with the basic knowledge and understanding to engage in presentations, engage in group work, to do debates, to do discussions, to do dramas, and all that. This is the flipped classroom, the basics of flipped classroom. So, how can you facilitate lower order thinking activities out of class before coming to for in class? You have to use the ICT. You can actually ask them, read the textbook at page 16, 18, and 19. And I have uploaded or I have sent some questions via WhatsApp. Read the textbook and use the WhatsApp questions and answer them. And you can weave you're sending a Google form. Then they actually answer it and they can weave their score, whether they have learned what they're supposed to know, whether they know the subject matter. That is the flipped classroom, right? It's very simply can be done. And with the this COVID and all that, now the students are using these devices for educational purposes, right? And then you can actually send them a video link and get them to watch it. And then based on the video, not anything, not with, you don't have to ask anything which is not there in the video. Cut and paste, direct questions. Watch the video. It's the life cycle of the butterfly, right? And then you're sending them illustration and ask them to name the life cycle of the butterfly. And then ask them to actually match the vocabularies with the definitions. And they watch the video, they can cut and paste the answers directly from the video, and they can do that. And they will actually learn the subject matter. When they come to class, you can group them. You can ask one group to create a poster. You can ask one group to actually do a playlet on life cycle of the butterfly, creativity, right? You can ask another group to do a presentation on the life cycle of the butterfly. And they develop cooperation, they develop creativity, they develop communication skills, they develop critical thinking, right? So this is very simple. If you're the teacher's mindset is there, do you understand or you don't understand? Please respond.
Understood.
Madam.
Yeah, what happened? Do you want me to? I will give you more examples definitely. But the basic understanding is there and I can give you more examples. Or you want me to explain it again? Tell.
Madam, can you explain it again?
Okay. Now you have pen and paper with you. Just jot down what I'm telling, the point form, not everything. In the point form, it will be very clear to you because the keywords, terminology you can take down. Okay? Right. Ready? Again from the beginning. So we are looking at the flipped method. Okay? It's a very highly student-centered method. Why? It gets you to develop the students, the 4 C's of the 21st century, along with the subject matter: communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. Okay, they are the 4 C's of the 21st century skills. So in each and every lesson that you should actually try to develop their 4 C's. Otherwise, they are just actually bookworms. They just only know the subject matter. That is not actually adequate in the 21st century education. So what is this flipping? There are 3 points that I gave you in the flip method. First one is use the flip method to flip the traditional classroom, to go send the traditional classroom upside down, topsy-turvy, totally a reverse of the traditional classroom, right? Second one, in the flip method, you use the ICT. Use of ICT because it's a form of blended learning, right? And then the third point is your flipped classroom has two parts. That is in-class activities and out-of-class activities. I will add another point then. Your flipped class has two types of activities. Lower order thinking activities, lot. Higher order thinking activities, hot. So those are the 4 points about the flipped method. Are you okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now let's see how it's being conducted. How it's to be conducted. Now in the traditional, I will first talk to you about the traditional class. How do we conduct traditional class? You know, you all are teachers, you all are being students, you know. Right. Now, normally the teacher walks into the class and students have the textbook. You're a history teacher. So it's about the kings of Sri Lanka and everything is given in the textbook. So you also go in front of the class. Students have the textbook. You also go in front of the class. You actually go on talking about the kings of Sri Lanka. The same thing in the book, the teacher explains. The students sit and listen. Then you ask a few questions from the students to see whether they have understood. And then the period is over. 40 minutes. Then you tell them, right, go home, do a poster on the kings of Sri Lanka, incorporating the key areas, elements. Then the students are supposed to do it on their own. And hardly the teacher has time to actually check it also. Am I right? Is this the traditional classroom?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. But in the student-centered education approach, we know students are not empty vessels. They have their prior knowledge, knowledge of the world, knowledge of the language, experiences. They are not empty vessels. They have prior knowledge. They are autonomous learners, right? They can be made autonomous learners. So students take up the responsibility of learning. So we are promoting those in the student-centered education. So in the flip method, where the traditional classroom is sent topsy-turvy, what happens is the teacher use the ICT, videos, LMS, WhatsApp, like you can use the ICT. And the teacher actually gets the learner to do out of class activities, but you are giving only lower order thinking activities because they are doing it on their own before coming to class. So you are giving them lower order thinking activities. Listen and learn, listen and understand, read and understand, watch and understand. Just simple, they can do that. Okay. And then you have to use ICT as well for this purpose. And out of class, for lower order thinking activities, we call it cut and paste activities. Telling directly you take what you see, what you hear, what you watch, nothing else. So they can do it on their own. And by doing it, they learn the subject matter. Now, in that history book, it is said, so and so is the first king of Sri Lanka. Then you give them a question, who is the first king of Sri Lanka? They can read and find the answer. And they can come to know who the first king of Sri Lanka. Very simple. So you give them lower order thinking activities out of class as the first part of the flipped method classroom. And you can actually get them to, you can motivate them because you're using ICT. So the reading passage is in the textbook, but you can actually send them a Google form, the MCQs. And they can click open the Google form through WhatsApp and they can actually click on the answers, and they can weave their score, and they can see how much that they have learned. And even the teacher from this end also can see whether they have got all the answers correct, whether they have learned the subject matter. They are just lower order thinking activities. Cut and paste, read and understand, listen and understand, or something like that. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, madam.
Yeah.
Madam.
Then, of course, the second part is you get them to come to school. This is in class activities after the out of class activities in the flipped method. In the in class activities, not like in the traditional classroom, you can now get them, they have learned about the kings of Sri Lanka. You put them into groups, collaboration, and ask them one group, you all can actually do a presentation on the kings of Sri Lanka. Second group, you can do a poster on the kings of Sri Lanka. Third group, you can do a drama on the kings of Sri Lanka. Fourth group, you can do a question and answer session, a quiz on the kings of Sri Lanka, because they already have learned the subject matter on their own out of class activities first before coming to the class. And you actually use ICT as well for this purpose, and they can come to know whether they have learned it or not by weaving their score and all that. Very interesting. And then when they come to class, they engage in activities higher order. Creativity is there, analysis is there, comparison is there, group work is there. So they develop their 21st century skills in the classroom, in class activities, higher order thinking activities. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now I will give you another example. Now you are actually teaching English, right? You're teaching English. So you want to actually teach them. Um, uh, Normally we go integrated skills, no? But we actually, you want to teach them grammar. So it's a grade 6 class. So the grammar lesson is present continuous. So there are lots of YouTube videos on present continuous. So you can send the links via WhatsApp. Or if you are using LMS, you can use the LMS. Some schools have LMS because in the COVID period, they actually got access to LMS. So like that, you have a network. Some or the other, you can actually use ICT now with your students. So you send them the links and ask them to watch the YouTube videos. And you're not giving them additional extra activities, which is out of what they read or what they see or what they hear. Instead, cut and paste, you call it. Directly, you can find the answer from this. So while watching this, that they list out what are the functions of simple present tense. So the video explains. We use simple present tense to talk about regular activities. We use simple present talk about general truths, like that. So they actually list them down. So you send them through WhatsApp or whatever a list of questions. The first one, state 4 functions of simple present tense. They watch the video and copy it from the video. They can do it. Anybody can do it. They're not empty vessels. Then the second one, right? The video has some examples, right? The video has some examples. So you get them to watch the video and use the verb in the present continuous. So the video describes the picture, right? There's a girl sitting on the bench. So you give them blanks. They watch the video and complete it. And then you ask them, uh, underline the verb of all the sentences. So you give them a one example, is sitting, are walking. So you give one or two examples and then they actually underline the verb of the rest of the sentences and come to class. They have learned it. And you can actually make it that you see the answers they give, and they also see whether they are right or wrong. Right? And then when they come, they know simple present tense, present continuous verb formation. And then in the groups, you give them pictures. They work in collaboration, the 21st century skills collaboration, and they actually describe a picture. And in one group, it's a different picture. Group 2, it's another picture. Group 3 is another picture like that. And then you can get the groups to come in front of class and mime. What am I doing? Then the other groups actually give the sentences in present continuous. Like that, you can actually make its group activities for collaboration, active participation, development of communication skills. They can be a bit creative in actually miming and all that. All these things are developed in the class. Otherwise, what happens? The teacher explains in the class the verb formation of simple present continuous and get them to describe the picture at home on their own, which is difficult and which is hardly done. Got it? Hello.
Yes, madam.
Madam.
Right. Can I get you to give me an example from one of your lessons? Anyway, the lot out of class happens first and they are cut and paste questions. Cut and paste කියලා කියන්නේ අර කියවන එක හරි බලන වීඩියෝ එකේ හරි අහන ඔඩියෝ එකේ හරි කෙලින්ම තියෙන ඒවා විතරයි. ඊට නැතුව හිතලා කරන දේවල් දෙන්නේ නැහැ lot activities වලට. So they can easily do it on their own and get to know the subject matter in the absence of the teacher, without the teacher. When they come to class, they can engage in higher order thinking activities, presentations, dramas, debates, discussions, blah, 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 blah. Right? Okay. Give me a second. Give me a second. Okay, sorry about the evidence and concern. Right now, are you there? Hello?
Hello,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, right.
Madam.
Can I continue? Yes.
Yes.
Can I give you another example for a while? Now, you are teaching science. You are teaching science. And it's a grade 4 class. Now, grade 4, you might think they are very young කියලා. But you have a beautiful video on parts of a tree. Parts of a tree. So, you actually get them to watch it at home. Because now, of course, they have access to these devices with the COVID and all that. They are actually allowed to use the mobile and all that with the kind of scrutiny of the parents. So you can actually make it once a week only. Then the parents during the weekend sit with the child and watch it and help the child to actually learn on their own. So you're not going to actually make it a burden for the parents. So you actually give every Friday, you give them some activity like that. So you have to be very practical in doing this. So the parents know, and every Friday that they are getting something to do, watching videos and all that, and they will sit with the child. And then the child watches it, and you send them some activity. So you give them an illustration of a tree and ask them to name the parts of the tree. And then in the second part of the video, it talks about two functions of parts of the tree, each part of the tree. So you can actually ask them in the second one, I have a list of jumbled functions of the parts of the tree. You have to watch the video because they can't write on their own. They are young, grade 4. It takes a lot of time for them to write all these functions. So you are sending them the functions. They have to match it with the part of the tree while watching it. And then after doing that, you can ask them to actually use the Google form and check their answers about the parts of the tree and the functions. And then they can weave their score. And then they come to class, they know the parts of the trees and two functions of each of the parts. And now you give them collaborative activities, presentations, like drama, come and talk in front of the class, doing a quiz and all that. Very active participants. Is it possible? I want your comments on that. Is it possible with a grade 4 class? You need to talk. Is it possible?
Maybe not, madam.
Why not? Why not? I want to know. Why do you say may not be? May it not be? Why? Hmm? We call it culture shock. Take it down. We call it culture shock because you have not trained your students in that. They are actually not very reluctant. Even the parents are reluctant because we always use these traditional methods. So they are not actually being made sensitized to these kind of methods. So because of that, there is the culture shock. They are not ready to do that. Am I right?
Yes, madam.
Another reason maybe in rural schools, poor families, there may not be even a phone. The digital divide. Am I right? Am I right?
Right, madam.
Yes, that is also another challenge. Then you can actually drop the part ICT. You can actually give them some textbook reading, and you can actually give them a question to be taken home. Before doing the lesson, they have to read it and do the questions and come. You can adapt. You can actually be flexible if this digital device is a problem. Okay. So what else? Lot of preparation for the teacher. Am I right? Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Yeah. How on earth that you can find time because you have 8 periods a day. You are poorly paid, so you have to do after school tuition. So where on earth that you can find time to prepare all these fine materials, prepare activities, Google forms, activities for lower order thinking, activities to be done in the class for higher order thinking, and then the Google forms, materials. Where on earth you can find time? Because if it is traditional classroom, you know the subject matter, you don't need to be prepared. You can just walk in front of class and go on explaining. Very much easier. But that cannot be applied in the flipped method. You have to find suitable materials. You have to accordingly, based on the material, cut and paste questions for lower order thinking activities to be done before coming to class, should be prepared and sent. And then when they come to class, you have to prepare group activities, different activities for each group. They are higher order thinking activities. So it's not easy. Lot of time is needed, lot of extra work is there for the teacher. That is the very nature of student-centered classroom. In the student-centered classroom, teacher has lot of homework. Teacher has to be prepared for the class, and teacher in the class is a facilitator. And students are made to work. Teacher brings them to the classroom by working at home. So that difficulty you have to face. It's a challenge. Am I right? It's another challenge. Am I right? Yeah. But it has its own advantages. If you don't use these new methods, which will get them to develop the 4 C's of the 21st century, skills, collaboration, cooperation, creativity, critical thinking, along with the subject matter. Our students are nowhere, they are not global citizens. They are not ready for the global world of work. They are just traditional, you call it frogs in the well. That is what our education is all about. They can reproduce the subject matter. When it comes to skills and attitudes, they are actually very, uh, at very low levels. I think that I have given you some examples. Now, it's all right. We can take about 10 minutes, but it's up to you, your attitude actually, once again, right? You can think of your own subject, a particular lesson, and you might have seen lots of freely available resources are there now. Mathematics, English language, science, you can find ample materials online. So they are freely available. So you can actually use them. You can develop a Google form. They are cut and paste, directly listen and do, read and do. They don't have to think and do, right? And then they come to know the subject matter out of class before coming to class for in-class higher order thinking. And then you have to think of some activities for higher order thinking. So can you think of an example as I've given you? I can give you about 5 to 10 minutes for that. Are you ready to do that, or it's not necessary? You can tell me. Because this is one of your assignments. So you have to actually know each other's ideas. You have to think in the class and see, give me, share it with me and see whether you're on the right track. So can you do that? Can you do that or not?
Madam, my signal was lost. Can you say what did you say?
Yeah, now I want you to think of, now I gave you several examples of the flipped method. Am I right? The life cycle of the butterfly, and then the simple present tense, and then the parts of the tree. Like that, I gave you some examples. So can you think of an example from your own subject and tell me how you are going to conduct the flip method at classroom? Is it possible?
Okay, madam.
Mm. Others? Others? Please
Yes.
respond. Otherwise, yeah, okay.
Okay.
So how much time you need? How much time you need? 5 minutes? Please respond. Otherwise, it's very rude of you, no? How much time you need, please? Mhm. Do you need 5 minutes or more than 5 minutes? Ayo, what's this, Appa? Are you going to do or you're not going to do that at least?
5 minutes is enough, madam.
All right, okay. I'll give you 5 minutes. Now it's 8:22. We'll make it 8:27. Okay? Hello? Hello? Are you ready with the examples? Are you ready with the examples? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, madam.
Yeah, are you ready with the examples?
Yes, madam.
Yeah, please go ahead. You can share it with us. If there's anything, I will correct you. So it's really good because your assignment is going to be something like that. Yeah, please. How they
Can
are
I
naming
explain
first?
the example,
Yes,
madam?
please. What's your name, dear?
I'm Jayana.
Yes, Jana. You can actually do now. Present it
Okay,
now.
I'm teaching mathematics at my school. So my
Mm-hmm.
example is based on mathematics.
Yeah.
So, for example, if the lesson, any particular lesson, let's say the lesson is coordinate plane. So
Yeah.
the teacher can make program learning session by using the software PowerPoint presentations.
Mm-hmm.
So in that we can program the PowerPoint presentation so as to they can do some activities as well before. So once they come to the school later on, once they go through the PowerPoint
No,
session and come.
what is important in lower order activities is out of class first. You have to make sure that it is cut and paste directly from what they do. See
Oh,
what they see, what they hear, what they watch directly from that. They don't have to think and do. You have to make sure that it happens.
yes, in the PowerPoint presentation, we can explain the x-axis and the y-axis, and the axis we call this a point. We use a letter to
Yeah.
name the point, the basic things. And
Mm.
at school, we can ask what are these axes? How do we name a point? What can we use to name a point? The simple questions taken
Individual
from.
work or group work?
We can give them group work also through simple activities.
You don't have to make it simple in class. You can make it actually higher order thinking activities because they are working in groups so they can share knowledge. You are there to guide them and facilitate. Am I right? Think
Yes,
of
ma'am.
the features that I tell you. First, it's out of class, cut and paste, simply read and understand, listen and understand, and watch and understand. ඒ ටික පැහැදිලිවම තියෙන්නට ඕනේ. ඊට වැඩි එකක් කරන්න බෑ. When they come to class, it has to be collaborative. So group work, they have to actually explain, communicate, and they have to actually do higher order thinking activities to develop for the development of creativity and critical thinking. ඔය ටික apply කරලා ඕනේ ඔයා ඔයාගේ අදහස කියන්න මට. පෙරණා නේද? Is it there in your activities?
The activities that I'm planning to do are like you can put the children in the groups and get them to draw the now initially if we are doing in this lesson in the traditional method, we have to draw and show them the coordinate plane, the name, the axis. We have to explain. So without doing that, we can get the children to draw a coordinate plane in the provided materials and name the axis, mark the points, and we can hold a simple competition for the students to mark the points, plotting the points.
Yeah, that is a very good example from a mathematics class. Which grade you are referring to?
Grade 7, madam.
Very good. So that is a very good example by, you said, what's your name, dear? What's your name?
Jana.
Yes, Jaina. Very good. So thank you, Jaina. So who is going next?
Madam, I am teaching mathematics.
Okay.
I send the video about solids to grade 6. Grade 6, solids.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I will send the videos. Then after that, I will send a Google form about the properties of solids. Then they will understand, watch and understand the properties of solids.
Mm.
Then they will classify the solids,
Mm.
classify properties of solids. Then they fill the Google form and send to it. Then check out. They will get the result also.
Mm. Mm.
Then I will send a question using by WhatsApp. Then classify the vertices and edges and faces, properties of solid. Those are the properties of
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah.
Then they will understand the solids, grade 6.
Yeah. Mm.
That's all, ma'am.
What about in class, higher order thinking?
In class, they will classify them, classify.
Right, okay. You
Yeah,
are putting them into groups and get them to do and present. Am I right?
yeah, yeah, madam.
Right. Okay, very good. That is also a very good example by, what's your name?
Gajasan.
Gajasan. Okay, good. So others?
Okay, madam.
Very good. Both the examples are really good. Yeah.
Madam, I also wrote about the flip method. About that is also 3D shapes. And students, I wrote students are given a video clip of 3D shapes, and um, uh, and ask them to find similar objects that they can find at home and bring them to the class next day. Then the students are divided, and they asked to show their objects and to name them, and also share the objects that they brought to the class among their peers and discussed about the shapes.
Very
And
good.
at the
It's very
home,
simple. What's the grade?
that's grade 3.
Very good. Actually, it's a very simple one, but it's really good. Then?
And teacher, then I will be sending another video clip of properties, and I will ask them to make a small project and bring it next day by pasting the
Don't
shape.
go beyond the, no, don't go beyond that. So then you're violating the rules of flip method. So out of class first for the lower order thinking, in class for the higher order thinking. Then again, you're giving them a video to watch and do projects at home is not right, no? Am I right? I think we are looking at the flip method now. When you are actually doing it, it's okay. You can combine. Okay, you can go eclectic. But now we are discussing the flip method now. So we have to stick to the flip method characteristics. Got it?
Them by the giving a project is it should be that is it necessary? Then only up to by sharing the objects that
They
they brought.
come to class, they share the objects, that is enough. Because we are discussing the flip method. So if in a normal classroom, you can actually add that part also. That is, you're adding some elements to the flip method and going eclectic. It's okay. But now in this class, we are discussing the flip method now. We are learning about the flip method now. So why should we deviate from the flip method? Okay. In practice, we are eclectic teachers. So you can actually modify the flip method. You can add, you can delete from the flip method. As I told you, if you actually face the challenge of digital divide, even though we have to use ICT in flipped class, you can drop that part and ask them to read the textbook and get them to write the questions and take home and do it first. So that is, modifications can be done, but in this class we are discussing the flip method as it is. Okay? Got it?
Thank you. Got it.
Right. You're good. Your example is good. It's even with the grade 3s, you can try this out because we have to actually train them in this autonomous learning, taking up responsibilities on their own, and what they can do on their own is to be done first. These kind of attitudes to be given to the students from the very early ages. Okay. That is good. Now, all the three examples of the mathematics class, all of you all are mathematics teachers.
Yes, madam.
What about others? In this class,
Madam,
all
I'm a
are
science
mathematics
teacher.
teachers. Yeah.
I'm a science teacher,
Yes.
madam.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach for grade 7. They have a lesson about systems, madam. So for the respiratory system, I can send a video about the parts of the system and the diseases.
Mm.
And the next day,
Mm.
I can divide my class into 4 groups. And I'll
Mm.
give some set of questions so they can discuss the answers with their group members. At last, I will pick a person randomly from each group. The person has to tell me the answer so all others can correct their answers. If the group's answer is wrong, so I can explain again. In that way, you can do that. Same thing, the
Yeah,
video
I want
and
to
the
add something
questions.
here. Yeah, yours is
Yes,
a very
madam.
good one. But now you're sending them a video on the respiratory system. But
Yes, madam.
you can't ask your students to just watch it and come. There's no focus. Along with the material, that is the video, you need to set them activities, lower order thinking activities. Otherwise, you're not giving them a focus. It's like they have the textbook at home. You get them to read it and come. They don't come. They don't read it and come. You have no guarantee whether they have read it, whether they have understood, whether they know the subject matter. So definitely when you are sending them the video on the respiratory system, you have to give them lower order thinking activities. One, label the respiratory system, you are sending the illustration. And second, maybe something else. Like that, you have to send them lower order activities, cut and paste. Cut and paste means watch and do. Nothing beyond the video that they watch. Is it okay? Is it clear?
Yes, madam. Thank you.
Yeah, giving them a focus. And if possible, there's a possibility of checking their understanding, whether they have actually done it right, the activities. That is actually really good. Okay. Otherwise, you don't know. They don't do. When there's no focus, they don't do that. Okay. Then you don't know whether they have learned it or not. You have to know that they have learned the subject matter before coming to class. But they are cut and paste. I repeat that. What is there in the video, only that you can actually ask them questions on, not beyond it. What they listen, what they can actually cut and paste. What they read, they can cut and paste. What they hear, they can cut and paste. What they see, they can cut and paste. Nothing beyond that for the lower order thinking activities. Okay. So now this would be your assignment, part of it. Okay. Part of the first question in your assignment. So I will send you instructions. So you will have to find a material. It may be a video, it may be a reading material, it may be an audio or whatever. And then along with that, you are sending them a Google form or you're sending them some activities through WhatsApp and all that. And these activities you have to prepare. So these activities you prepare for out of class are lower order, that is cut and paste. Exactly what he hear, exactly from what they read, exactly from what they see, not beyond that. And then I will ask you to prepare activities for higher order thinking in class. So you have to prepare group activities, right? They are not just typical desk work. What they have learned, use this knowledge, and they have to do a presentation, they have to do a debate, they have to do a drama, they have to do a poster, they have to actually do a kind of a illustration or something like that. Is it okay?
Yes,
Is
madam.
it okay? Yeah. I think it's very clear. If you are not very sure of it, you can listen to the video again. Right? And then we come to another method. Are you ready for the next method? That is jigsaw method. ඒකත් ටිකක් මේ වගේ complicated එකක්, right? So you have to actually, you don't have to get it mixed up. Now the flipped method is done and dusted. So we now move on to another method. What is that method I told you? Jigsaw
Jigsaw
method. Okay, jigsaw method. And whatever the subject that you teach, there's a possibility. Not with each and every lesson, not with each and every lesson that you can use the jigsaw method, but there's a possibility of using the jigsaw method uh, with some lessons, irrespective of the subject that you teach them. Irrespective of the subject that you teach, there is a possibility of using the jigsaw method. When it is possible, you can use it, right? Not on regular basis, definitely, right? It's time consuming, it's tiring for the teacher, so not on daily basis that you can use jigsaw method, okay? Right. I'm actually sharing a document with you now, right? Right. So the jigsaw method, sample jigsaw reading activity. Now, jigsaw is basically you have a reading passage to be given to them. That reading is not language related. It can be a science lesson in the textbook that you have something to read. It can be a geography lesson. It can be a history lesson. Even in mathematics, sometimes you get them to read and understand, right? Am I right? Or am I mistaken? Mhm. In mathematics also that they can read and understand some areas.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
madam.
that kind of a lesson you can select, right? That kind of a lesson you can select. So then this is how it happens. In the jigsaw method, you need two types of grouping. How many types of grouping?
Two types.
Two types of grouping is needed. What are the two types of grouping? You can make notes, otherwise you will be lost. Okay, now we are looking at jigsaw method. Normally the jigsaw method is used with some sort of reading to be done with the students. So when they have to read and understand, you can use this jigsaw method. Okay, so that what they are supposed to read, maybe a small part. Okay, so with that you need two types of grouping in the jigsaw method class. The first type is jigsaw groups or home groups or family groups. All the three refer to the same. Jigsaw, family, or home groups. Same thing, okay? You need that kind of grouping. And then you need to actually get them to be in another type of grouping. You call it expert groups. Expert groups. So what are the two types of grouping needed in the jigsaw method? First is the jigsaw, family, or home groups. And then you have to form expert groups as well. That is also clear, right? That is also clear. And then you have a reading passage to be given. You have to chunk the reading passage into sensible parts. I repeat, you have to chunk the reading passage into sensible parts. Sensible kind of meaningful parts. Now, for example, if it is a history lesson, it's about kings of Sri Lanka. In that, there are 4 kings. So you chunk the first king into one. Second king is the part 2. Third king is the part 3. Fourth king is the part 4. So if it is an English lesson, it is about environment. So you have to chunk this reading passage. First, the introductory paragraph. Then the second paragraph is what nature gives us. Third paragraph is it's about how we pollute nature. And the fourth paragraph is about what measures to be taken to preserve it. They are sensible. right? So you decide how many parts that you can actually chunk this lesson into sensibly. Suppose you decide this lesson reading passage can be chunked into 3 parts. So another lesson you think this can be chunked into 4 sensible parts. Another lesson, this can be chunked into 5 sensible parts. It's up to you to decide, but the chunking the lesson into parts should be sensible. Is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? I ask you something.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Then, if you chunk your reading passage into 3, you're going to form home groups or jigsaw groups of 3 people. In the jigsaw groups that you're going to form, there should be 3 people. If you chunk your lesson into 4 sensible parts, now the reading passage is into 4 parts. First you form jigsaw groups. In these groups, one group should have 4 members. If you have chunked your lesson into 5 sensible parts, how many members should be there in the jigsaw groups that you are going to form?
4 members.
How many? No, you actually chunked it into 5 parts. Then in the
5
jigsaw groups, how many? 5 members. The number of chunks, the number of members in the jigsaw groups, right? Why? I want to tell you why. You are going to create information gap between and among the jigsaw group members, family members, home members. Now, if there are 5 parts of a reading passage, your jigsaw group has 5 members. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first part of the reading passage is given to member 1. The second part is given to member 2. The third part is given to member 3. The fourth part is given to member 4, and the fifth part is given to member 5. For each part of the reading lesson, there should be a member in the jigsaw group. Right. But what is given to group member 1, the 2, 3, 4, 5, they don't know what is there in that part. You give part 2 to the member 2. What is in part 1, 3, 4, 5, the member 2 doesn't know. You create information gap among the members of the family group.
Excuse me, ma'am. Now, as you said,
Yeah.
now according to the paragraphs, we have to uh, number the, if there are 3 paragraphs means 3 members. So this is 3 members in the sense, ma'am, is it a group, in a group? Or
Yeah,
I
you
didn't get.
form jigsaw groups. Now you actually form groups in the class. The groups are called jigsaw groups.
Okay,
And
ma'am.
in the group, there should be 3 members if the lesson is 3 parts. If the reading passage is into 4 parts, the jigsaw members group should have 4 members. So if you have a class of 20, if you have a reading lesson chunked into 4, how many jigsaw groups you can form? Your class has 20. Your jigsaw reading is into 4 parts. So in the jigsaw groups, there should be 4 members. Then how many jigsaw groups we are going to form?
5.
5. Likewise, okay?
Okay.
Then you give each jigsaw group have 4 or 5 members according to the number of parts, and the one part, each member, now member 1 has part 1, member 2 has part 2, member 3 has part 3. So member 1 doesn't know what is there in 2, 3, 4, 5. Member 2 doesn't know what is there in 1, 3, 4, 5. Member 3 doesn't know what is there in 1, 2, and 4, 5. Like that, you have created information gap among the jigsaw family members. පැහැදිලි නේද ඒක?
Yes.
යා මොකද පළවෙනියට දුන්න කෙනා දන්නේ නැහැ 2 3 4 5 තියෙන්නේ මොනවද කියලා. දෙවෙනියා දන්නේ නැහැ 1 3 4 5 තියෙන්නේ මොනවද කියලා. You have created a information gap. Right. Then once they get a chunk of the reading passage, a part of the reading passage, you get them to now disperse from the jigsaw groups and to form expert groups. Then we are a jigsaw group වල ඉන්න අයට කියනවා expert groups හදන්න කියලා. කොහොමද expert groups are formed? All part 1 students, those who have got part 1, the member ones in all the jigsaw groups, they get together and form a group. It's expert group 1. And those who got part 2 in each of the jigsaw groups, in a class of 20, now the lesson is into 4 parts. There are 5 jigsaw groups. So there will be 4 people from each jigsaw group having the second part. And those who have the second part get together and form the expert group 2. Is it clear? Is it clear? නැත්තම් නෑ කියන්නේ උනම් ඔව් කියන දෙය. Is it clear or you want me to give another example?
Can you give an example, ma'am?
Yeah, now your class has 20 students. You have a reading passage chunked into 4 parts. Reading passage is chunked into 4 parts. Your class has 20 students. So the jigsaw members, how many jigsaw groups you can form? Because in a jigsaw group, you have 4 members. Because 4 parts, 4 members. Then you have 5 jigsaw groups in the class. Am I right?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. Then when you get all the part 1 people to get together and form one expert group, how many part 1 people are there? Your class has 20, 4 members in a jigsaw group because the lesson has 4 parts. So if you ask all the part 1s to get together and form expert group 1, how many members will be there in the expert group 1?
5.
5.
5. 5, yes, 5. So expert group 2, 5 members, those who have the same part 2. Expert group 3, 5 members, those who have the same part 3. Expert group 4, those who have the same part 4. And expert group 5, හතරයි කියලා අපි ගත්තේ right, හතරයි. Parts හතරම තියෙනවා. Now expert group 1 has the members, 5 members, all have the part 1. Then there is another expert group, they have the part 2 with everyone. So then you give them an activity. You bring them you actually have to beforehand prepare it. You give them an activity. So they can do the activity in their expert groups and come to know what is there in the part that they get. So the teacher in the class of 20, lesson chunked into 4. Now the expert groups are formed. So there are 4 expert groups for part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. How many activities the teacher can give the same activity to all the groups, expert groups, or the teacher has to prepare different activities for the 4 groups, 4 expert groups? I want to tell you. I want you to tell me.
Different activities.
Can the teacher give? Huh? Yeah? I didn't get you, please. Can the teacher give the same activity to all the expert groups? Or teacher has to prepare different activities for the expert groups? I'm asking.
Different activity.
Definitely yes, because Expert group 1 has part 1 of the reading passage. Expert group 2 has part 2 of the reading passage. So based on the part that they have, the teacher has to prepare an activity. So when they do the activity by reading that part, they come to know what is there in that part. Am I right? Am I right?
Madam.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, yes.
Yes,
So
madam.
the teacher's responsibility is to prepare activities for the expert groups, different activities based on the part of the reading passage that they get, and make sure by doing the activity they come to know what is there in that part of the reading passage. They do the activity to know what is there in the reading passage. So you have to make sure that the activity, by doing that activity, they come to know what is there in the reading activity. For example, if it is about King One, so where was he born? What is his full name? Who are his parents? And what are his significant contributions to the country? Like that, based on what is there in that, you ask questions. And they, in the expert group, they actually read it and find answers and become experts in the part of the reading passage that they get. Okay. Now, once it is done, you get them to go back to their jigsaw groups or home groups. Once these activities are done, you get them to go back to their jigsaw groups or home groups. When they come back to their jigsaw groups or home groups, member 1 is an expert in part 1. He knows what is there in the part 1. Member 2 is an expert in part 2 because he knows what is there in part 2. And there you facilitated knowing what is there in part by getting them to be in expert groups and sharing their knowledge and working in a group. It's facilitated. When they come back, they are experts in their part of the reading passage. And now what you have to do is you have to give the jigsaw groups an activity based on the whole reading passage. Based on the whole reading passage. You have to give the jigsaw groups now an activity to be done based on the whole reading passage. So if it is based on the whole reading passage, in order to do this activity in their jigsaw groups, what they are supposed to do? What they are supposed to do? What they're supposed to do? They are supposed to talk to each other, am I right? To get information from each other, am I right?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. So you promote interaction among the members of the jigsaw group because member 1 knows only part of it. Member 2 knows another part of it. Member 3 knows another part of it. And there's an activity to be done using the knowledge of the whole text. So they have to communicate with each other, interact with each other in order to do the activity which is given based on the whole text. So they have to actually talk to each other and do the activity. And here, the purpose is promoting interaction and communication and cooperation. Promoting interaction, communication, and cooperation. Is it clear to you? I'm tired, man. Now look at this. Step 1. Select a grade appropriate text that has the same number of paragraphs as member of each group. For 9 students, you can have 3 groups of 3 students and select a text that is 3 paragraphs long. Prepare a graphic organizer such as chart that includes all 3 paragraphs and would be appropriate for the content. For example, the following chart could be used for the main idea and details. Make 3 copies of selected reading. Label the first paragraph A, second paragraph B, and third paragraph C. Then cut the text to each complete text as 3 pieces. There should be 9 separate paragraphs. Like now here you can see for the class of 9 students, your groups will look like this because you chunked your reading passage into 3. So in the jigsaw groups, you have 3 members, 3 members, 3 members. And then they form now they are back in the jigsaw group. This is the expert group. Right? All part A is in one, all part B is in one, all part C is in one. They actually, after doing the activity for the expert group based on the part, they come back to their jigsaw group and they interact with each other because the activity they have to do is on the whole text. So they have to interact. Hope that it is clear. Am I right? Am I right? Is it clear? Am I right? It is clear. Hmm? So I have some more notes that you can read and come to know better how to conduct jigsaw reading. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Mm-hmm. Do you have any questions? May lamay kata ka na math kata no krino pa. Do you have any questions, please?
No.
Right. Now I'm sharing a PowerPoint. Can you see jigsaw as a technique in CLT? Can you see?
Yes,
කතා කරන තම නවත්තනවා. Right, okay. ඒ විදිහට කරන්න බෑ මට. I'm tired when you're not responding. The same thing is asked several times by me, no? It's very unfair. If it is difficult, you can tell me. I can understand that. When you're keeping quiet, I don't know, no? Right, can you see this?
Yes,
yes,
madam.
yes, madam.
Yeah, now look at this. What is meant by information gap? An information gap activity is an activity where learners are missing the information they need to complete a task and need to talk to each other to find it. That is what happens at the end of the jigsaw activity. They come back to the jigsaw groups and what jigsaw members A and B and C has, the others they don't know. So they have to actually talk to each other, interact with each other in order to complete the task given in the whole reading passage. Okay. Then next, the 2 groups in jigsaw activities. I talked to you family or home or jigsaw groups and the expert groups and steps of conducting a jigsaw lesson. Divide students into groups of 4 to 6 people per group. Divide your content into 4 to 6 chunks. Assign 1 chunk of content to each person in the jigsaw group. Have students meet in expert groups. Students return to jigsaw groups. Assess all students in all the content. Now here the family or the jigsaw group. Look at this and tell me, the reading passage is divided into how many parts? These are the family or the jigsaw groups. The reading passage is divided into how many parts?
part.
6 parts.
Part.
4 parts.
Yeah, 4 parts. I told you. If the reading passage is divided into 4 parts, your family group should have how many members? 4 members. So you can see there are only 4 members in the family groups. Okay. Right. Then how many students are there in the class?
20, ma'am.
24.
24.
24. Yeah, 24. So how many expert groups can be formed?
4 expert groups.
4 expert groups. 4 expert groups.
Four
Very
expert.
good. Now these are the expert groups. Now you give activities for the expert group on the whole text or on the part that they get?
Whole
Only on the part
text.
that they get.
Yeah, on the part that they get. Student 1 has the part 1. So you have to give them an activity to be done in the expert group based on the part 1 only. Student 2 is the member 2. So all the student 2s in the expert group has only part 2. So you have to give them an activity based on the part 2, right? Not on the whole text, right? That is it. Once they get back to the jigsaw groups, you have to give them another activity to be done based on the whole group in their jigsaw groups. Advantage. Jigsaw helps students to learn cooperation as group members share responsibility for each other's learning by using critical thinking and social skills to complete an assignment. Subsequently, this strategy helps to improve listening, communication, and problem-solving skills. That is it. That is about the jigsaw group, jigsaw method. So if I'm to show you an assignment, a sample, it's not the exact thing anyway, a sample assignment that I will send you. Give me a second. Okay. Give me a second. Right. This is just a sample. Okay. Right. Can you see what I'm sharing? Can you see? Yeah. Question 1. Select a suitable lesson to be conducted as a jigsaw activity. එතකොට reading part එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. Select a suitable lesson to be conducted as a jigsaw activity. State the subject, grade, etc. Prepare activities. Activities for the expert groups and activities for the family groups. Right? Write a brief note on how you are going to conduct the lesson. Your answer should include the following: a copy of the lesson selected, a brief explanation about the subject, topic, grade, and the chunking of the lesson into parts. Activities for the expert groups, activities for the jigsaw groups. A brief note on how the lesson will be conducted. Will you be able to do this?
Yes, madam.
Then another one on the flip method, right? Select a suitable lesson to be conducted using the flipped method. Suitable window, flip method එක කරන්න. State the subject, grade, etc. Select or design or තෝරන්නත් පුළුවන් නැත්නම් design කරන්නත් පුළුවන්. YouTube video ගන්න පුළුවන්, text book එකකින් article එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්, whatever. Select or design materials and activities for lot. lower order thinking to be given to students as free activity, out of class activity before the in class. ඔගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා ඒතර මුලින්ම දෙන්නේ out of class. They are cut and paste, not beyond the text. So one activity or two activities based on the video or the reading or whatever. They design activities for the hot subsequent in class. So they are group activities, presentations, debates, and all that they have learned the subject matter on their own and they are using it and doing it in the class. Write a brief note on how you're going to conduct the lesson. Your answer should include a copy of the lesson selected, a brief explanation about the subject, topic, grade, materials to be used, materials and the activities for lot for out of class, then activity or activities for hot for in class, a brief note on how the lesson will be conducted. Are you okay?
Okay, madam.
Yes, madam.
Are you ready or you're prepared by me now to do the assignment? Yes or no? Now the activities you prepare actually, you can use them in your own classroom as well. It's not a waste. So think of something that you teach and then accordingly select a suitable one for the flipped and suitable one for the jigsaw. And do the activities, prepare the activities that is thinking of your own students and your own class. Then you can use them in your classes and see how it works and how your students participate and all that. Initially, there will be culture shock as well, as I tell you, because they are alien to this kind of work. But gradually, you can actually get them to start liking, and then you can get them to develop their core skills along with the subject matter. Okay. Okay, there.
Yes, madam.
Yeah. Then I actually finished my discussion on methods. We discussed the two main approaches as teacher-centered and student-centered. Then we discussed some methods starting from teacher-centered, that is lecture method and demonstration. Then we actually moved on to methods in student-centered education approach, that is discussions, then scientific method, then the flip method, and then the jigsaw method. So then I'm going to talk to you about techniques. We actually on the first day looked at approaches. Based on the approaches you select that you have the methods, and based on the methods that you have the techniques to be used in the classroom. So some of the techniques that you will be using in the classroom will be discussed next. Are you okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. As we have only another 15 minutes or less than that, I will actually talk to you about one of the techniques only today. You can take it down, techniques, grouping as a technique in the classroom. What is it? Grouping as a technique in the classroom. It's a classroom technique. Whether you can actually now work backwards and see. Grouping happens in teacher-centered or grouping happens in student-centered classroom. The technique grouping is used in the teacher-centered classroom or in the student-centered classroom.
Students.
Students.
Yeah, definitely in the teacher-centered classroom, teacher goes in front of class, students individual desk work, listen and learn. So grouping is not necessary. So that is the alignment. Okay. Now when it comes to grouping, it happens in the student-centered education. We can use two main types of grouping in the class. How many main types? Two main types of grouping. Yeah. One is same ability groups. Same ability groups. The other one is different ability groups. same ability groups and different ability groups. We can tell same ability groups can be referred to as homogeneous grouping. Homogeneous grouping. And different ability groups can be termed as heterogeneous grouping. Heterogeneous grouping. So homogeneous, same ability groups. Heterogeneous, different ability groups. Okay. Now, I'm not going to separate the advantages and disadvantages into two types. I will discuss a common one. You can actually make a list of advantages and disadvantages of both the types. Now, when you put them into same ability groups, you actually know their levels. And the very good ones are put into one group, and the average is put into another group. So they are all same ability, and the weaker ones are put into another group. Advantage is you can actually get the learners to, you can prepare different activities to cater to their level based on the same lesson. You can prepare different activities. For the very good ones, a challenging activity. For the average, an activity which is suitable for them. And for the weaker class, it's a very simple activity for them, but the same lesson. It's an advantage because then nobody feels actually dissatisfied, demotivated. They actually perform at their own levels. They can learn at their own pace. For example, if you're an English language teacher, if it's a reading passage, if it is a challenging class, you can tell them, do the comprehension questions, write answers in complete sentences, and write the summary of the reading passage as well. For the average, you can ask them to write the answers for the comprehension in short form. And for the weaker ones, you can give them a set of MCQ to check their understanding. Further, teacher can actually pay more attention to the weaker ones. That is another advantage. But the disadvantage would be the students actually won't be able to learn from each other, especially the weaker groups. All are weak. So they won't be able to actually learn from each other. But when it comes to heterogeneous grouping, different ability groups, the main advantage is that the teacher can actually get the learners to learn from each other. Okay? But the disadvantage may be the good ones may be bored because the others are slow. If not, the weaker ones will be actually inhibited because the good ones go at a fast pace. So that limitation is there in heterogeneous grouping. But we don't have to say which is better. It all depends on the context of teaching. You can actually sometimes use heterogeneous grouping, sometimes use homogeneous grouping as it is appropriate based on the lesson that you teach, based on the class you have, based on the time that you have in the class, etc. But mixture of both the types of grouping can be used as a technique in the classroom by the teacher. Yes or no? Oh, yes or no, dear?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah. So that is about grouping. I don't have much to talk about grouping. Okay. And there are grouping techniques also. You don't have to just ask them to get into groups. Instead, you don't have to just always ask them to actually turn to your neighbor and form a group. No. You can actually use ice breaking activities, and that activity is getting them to form groups. It's very interesting then. For example, you can give them a kind of a task based on their previous knowledge to recall their previous knowledge for the day's activity. And it's about adjectives. It's about adjectives. So you have adjectives to describe people, adjectives to describe places, adjectives to describe qualities, etc. Adjectives to describe physical features of a person, like that. So you get them to pick the word card and read the adjective and go and actually scan in the topics you have. This is an adjective to describe physical features of a person, tall. Then the one who picked the adjective tall go and stand there. So you have a scenic. Then it is to describe a place. So they read the adjective and go and stand there. And the students who get adjectives to describe physical features of a person form one group. Those who get adjectives to describe the qualities of a person form another group, like that. It's an through activity that you get them to form groups as well. So that kind of activities are there for you to actually get them to form groups in a very interesting manner, and at the same time it promotes education as well. So with that, I think we can stop the discussion for the day until we meet next time. So you are very clear about the assignment that you're supposed to do, no? Can I send it to you through the campus?
Okay,
Can I send
madam.
it to you? Yeah, okay. So with that, then until we meet next week, I actually
Madam,
stop the meeting.
Madam,
Yeah,
when will be the due date for the assignment?
you need month's time.
Okay, madam.
I will ask the campus to give you a month's time, Putha. Okay?
Okay,
Because
madam.
you need time. You can't just do it. Okay? And it's very easy. You don't have to write long essays, but it's actually something very practical. Okay?
Madam, one of the assignment we can do, no, madam?
How do you like it? I thought of giving both. Is it too much?
Flip method we can use, madam.
Jigsaw method is difficult.
Maths teachers difficult to jigsaw method.
Yeah. So I will make it either of them then. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, madam.
Selection. Right, okay.
Excuse
Then
me,
can I
ma'am.
stop the meeting? Yeah.
We should do it as a hard copy or soft copy, ma'am.
That of course, I think it's normally, what about the other subjects? It's the soft copy, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's a soft copy. Right. Any other questions? Any other questions?
No, ma'am.
Right. Then can I stop the meeting and the meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you very much and good night.
Good night, ma'am.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.
So next time we are getting into lesson planning. Huh?
Okay, ma'am.